Daughter of Siren Head. Report 1. Subject Sissy. There is a lot of darkness in this world, much that the agency has had to conceal from the general public. This is done to keep them from panicking and making the situation worse. Because when people, not used to the truth of the world, stumble into reality, death and destruction tends to follow. High up on the list of destructive things are a group of monstrous creatures. Siren Heads. Tall, inhuman figures with a number of sirens in place of a head. They have been around for centuries, and wherever they emerge, tragedy is soon to follow. These beings are hard to fight, harder still to injure, and nearly impossible to escape when they hunt you. Communication has failed to reach them. Negotiation and even forced isolation has failed. Somehow, Siren Heads will always find their way to a populated place or to lure people to where they nest without fail. The agency has lost agents, bases, and whole populations due to their actions. Siren Heads were among the first creatures to have teams of researchers dedicated to finding a way to kill them. One of the attempts was to use the research of a rogue senior researcher to create a creature that would hunt whatever DNA it was formed with. The agency used the DNA of a deceased senior agent, as well as that of the most deadly of the Siren Heads, Multi-Head. The result was a human Siren Head hybrid. At first, it did what it was designed for, hunting down the Siren Heads and wounding them, forcing them into long periods of rest or keeping them from fulfilling their twisted desires. Her very nature would cause them to burst into flames when they came into proximity of the hunter, and direct skin-to-skin contact would cause their flesh to rapidly decay. She was so effective that the decision was clear. The huntress was to be deployed against the most dangerous Siren Head of them all, Multi-Headed Siren Head. Supported by a full heavy assault squad, automated gun turrets, and full agency support, the plan was to corner Multi-Head and put it down with extreme prejudice. Things went horribly wrong. For some reason, the huntress embraced her target, and their combined screams killed every living thing within range. She then escaped with Multi-Head and became its wife. Later, in a chance encounter, the agent discovered her and Multi-Head fighting over several bundles. Junior Agent Chicago was given a bundle by the wife and compelled to retreat with it as fast as possible. Not able to resist the control, Chicago did so, returning to base. When detained upon entry, the agent revealed that the bundle he had been given was a baby, one that had the head of a siren. Being jostled woke the infant up, causing it to scream. A very inhuman scream. The whole base was put into immediate lockdown to prevent anyone from infecting the outside world. Many were debating the idea of immediately killing the infant and not giving it a chance to grow up. This was a popular choice, and the director in charge of the base was ready to sign off on the order. Why take the chance with a Siren Head? That was when an order from the higher-ups arrived. The baby had to live. It was a prophecy from one of the strongest seers in partnership with the agency, a human-like creature called the Web Eater. This daughter had to live, or much worse things would occur. And with the agency's leadership giving the order, that was the end of it. The daughter of Siren Head would live and be raised by the agency. As the girl grew, she was carefully monitored by senior researchers, as well as her handler and adopted father, Agent Chicago. He had been given the permanent assignment of watching the girl. Also because he couldn't be trusted in the field anymore, not after exposure to both the wife and to Multi-Head. So rather than retire him or throw him in prison, it was kinder to assign him to this task to make sure the daughter grew up right. For the most part, Chicago did his job well, ignoring the fact that the girl had the head of a siren and was stronger than 6 men combined. She was very human in personality and actions. A few senior agents remarked that she acted a lot like her grandmother, the deceased senior agent Delaware, whose genes were used to create the wife of Siren Head. Well, Delaware before Multi-Headed Siren Head killed her entire family, and then her anyway. The daughter, or Sissy as named by Chicago, was kind, intelligent, and completely aware of her non-human origin. She was raised with the knowledge that she can really hurt people if she isn't careful. By raising Sissy, the agency was able to discover a lot more about Siren heads that wasn't known before. Such as, despite lacking eyes and ears, Sissy can see and hear perfectly well. As Sissy grew and got older, she aged like a human being of her own span of years. Both in physical and mental development, Sissy acted like a human. But she wasn't just human. She was a Siren head too. Sissy could talk to people normally, using her sirens in order to communicate. But when upset or not thinking, she has in the past let loose her sirens. In some cases, this has caused severe headaches or nosebleeds in those around her. In others, Sissy accidentally gave mental suggestions that were difficult not to follow. This only increased the paranoia and fear about her, but Chicago, her guardian and adoptive parent, was strict in raising her to never do that. To use her sirens to hurt people was an evil thing. It was something that Sissy heard over and over again as she was raised, until it was embedded in her subconscious. But no matter how uneasy her presence made people, Sissy grew up, and the agency, through raising her, was able to learn more and more about Siren heads. One detail that was discovered was that, like seers, Sissy could predict when something bad was about to happen. It came to her as a vague, bad feeling, one that only increased the closer the event came to happening. This was mainly localized to a general area, and, based on the level of bad feeling, it could range from forgetting to set the alarm, to being late, to tripping down some stairs. Things came to a head though, when one day Sissy had an agonizingly bad feeling. Enough of a one that it was starting to hurt her and trigger her sirens. No matter how much Chicago tried, Sissy couldn't stop crying about the bad feeling. The decision was made to put Sissy into isolation. Though she hated being by herself, she entered it willingly. On the way to the isolation chamber, Sissy suddenly pushed Chicago with all her strength. The accompanying guards drew their guns as the man hit the wall hard. It was the only thing that saved his life. A dangerous creature had escaped containment and was beginning to rampage through the base. It had come through the vents and would have landed where Chicago was had Sissy not pushed him. Sissy was on the creature in an instant and had pinned it before it could harm anyone. Sissy herself was heavily injured as she wrestled with it. It was a sight to see. A small, humanoid girl the size of a 10-year-old wrestling with a creature the size of a small outdoor shed. When asked why she did such a thing, Sissy confessed that she just wanted people to like her. She was aware that people were scared of her, or worse, hated her. But Chicago Papa had taught her. All she had to do was try, and people would like her. Succumbing to her injuries, Sissy soon fell into a coma. In the aftermath, she was rushed to medical and, despite patching up her injuries, they wouldn't heal. She kept bleeding through her bandages. Had Sissy been fully human, she would have been in real danger of bleeding out. Agency staff were worried that, with her being wounded, her nature as a Siren head would become ascendant. Once again, the subject of putting Sissy down was raised. Chicago wouldn't have it though. Waking up in time to stop the talks, he went to Sissy's bed in the infirmary. Like the others, he tried to wake her up. But, unlike the others, Chicago had raised Sissy for the last 10 years. So his shout managed to get through and rouse her, at least partially. Upon asking her what she needed, Sissy responded to her father that she was very hungry. Getting food from the cafeteria, they quickly noticed that Sissy's body was rejecting all the non-meat sources of nourishment. And even the meat had to be as raw as possible. They tried feeding it through Sissy's sirens, but soon realized that just placing the bloody meat on her exposed skin caused it to be absorbed rapidly into Sissy's body. It took over 200 pounds of raw meat, but when it was done, all of Sissy's injuries were healed. When the girl finally woke up, she smiled because everyone was okay, and she told Chicago that she'd figured out how to do something really cool. Her guardian thanked her for saving all of them, telling her that he was proud of her. Giving her a hug without hesitation, Chicago ignored Sissy's sniffling. Moving on, he asked her what she'd figured out. Sissy grinned and stood up on the bed. Tensing her body, her flesh rippled and contorted. Before the infirmary staff could hit the alarm, Sissy's body changed. And standing in front of them wasn't a human Siren head hybrid, but a small 10-year-old girl with curling dark hair. End Report 1.